Look out, this is not a pack of zombies, but a bunch of crazy alien monsters. 2048 AD. The white spikes have invaded Earth. They feed on humans and reproduce quickly and fight hard. Humans are no match for them. In just 2 years, the Earth fell. Fewer than 5.1 million humans remain. At the end of the day, someone invented the time machine. This was apparently the last straw for mankind. It's Christmas 2022. People are at home watching the World Cup final. A Brazilian player is pushing the ball upfield. Suddenly, a wormhole appears in the middle of the pitch, and then a group of heavily armed soldiers jump out of it. The players, the spectators, and the TV viewers are all baffled. The leader, Jenny, made a big announcement. "We're from the year 2050 and we're at war with aliens and we're losing. If you don't help, humanity will be gone from the planet in 11 months. You are our last hope." The governments then confirmed the speech and began to build a time machine to transport soldiers into the future to fight the white spikes. However, the war was so fierce that soldiers were not enough, so countries began forcing civilians to enlist. But even this was not enough to turn the tide of war in the future. Pessimism began to spread and anti-war sentiment grew, with riots and protests taking place everywhere. On the other hand, our hero, Danny, is a retired Special Forces soldier and high school teacher. One day while teaching his students, he suddenly receives a recruitment text message. He comes to the recruiting office and is asked to take a test. He sticks his arm into a machine. A few moments later, the officer announced that he was eligible for the draft. Before Danny knew it, a wave of pain washed over him. A metal bracelet had been fitted to his arm. The staff told him it was a time travel device. "You can't take it off until you've completed your military service. We can use it to find you wherever you are. It means you can't think about running away." Back at home, his wife suggested running away as a family, because this trip is definitely a bad one. But Danny knew that if he ran away, his family would be involved. So he decided to do his military service. Then he said goodbye to his wife and daughter and went to report for duty. Jenny told everyone that it would only take 7 days. "When you're done, the bracelet will automatically send you back." Danny's group was supposed to have a week of training first, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they were thrown into a time machine that night. A wormhole appeared overhead in a flash of light, and everyone was sucked into it. But that's when the soldiers in the control room realized that the output coordinates were wrong. Danny and the others were supposed to be transported to the beaches of Miami. Instead, they were accidentally sent to the dangerous downtown area. Soldiers were falling and many were killed. Danny was lucky enough to fall into a pool. The scene is haunted and wailing. The monster has not yet been seen, but half of the people are already dead. Those who survived looked into the distance. The heart is suddenly cold again. It was like an inferno with flames everywhere. That's when they were contacted by a female commander. They were told to go to a nearby lab and search for some scientists. Since Danny had been in the army and had experience in search and rescue, he was assigned to lead the team. Danny then led the team into action. Through the empty streets they reached the lab. However, the scientists had already been attacked and killed. They were skinned and hung upside down in the air. The female commander told them to take the scientists' experiments and leave as soon as possible. The monsters could return at any moment, and the group took the stairs to evacuate. In the process, there was a sudden movement overhead. Danny shone his torch and there was the monster. One of the team members screamed and was killed by a nail the next second. The men then fired back. But the monsters weren't afraid. One of them jumped down and wrapped itself around the waist of one of the women and thudded over the railing. The men fought and retreated. The monsters were chasing after them. They were so intelligent that they used the hard armor on their backs to deflect bullets. The men try their best to get out of the building. The bald man in charge of the door is knocked out of the way. "One of the monsters is coming at us." Danny fires. After the machine gun, the pistol. After the gun, he grabbed an axe and slashed at it. But he missed. He pulled it out and poked it into the monster's head. But the monster didn't die. In the nick of time, Alan from the team arrived in time. He shot the monster in the head twice and killed it. The group escaped from the lab building. The monsters were still in pursuit. Suddenly, some armored vehicles came up ahead. The crowd was ecstatic. But the next moment, they had to keep firing to meet them. But the creatures are too clever. Not only were they organized and disciplined, they also pinned them back and forth. If they hit them with their spikes, they're dead. At that moment several fighter planes dropped bombs on the area. Danny rushed the team out. In the process, the the team's fatty falls into a tunnel under their feet. Danny leads the team down to rescue him. As a result, another female member of the team is injured. Determined to stay, the two men push Danny away and turn around to continue shooting. At the same time, the fighters dropped another wave of bombs. Danny wakes up from his coma to meet the female commander. After a deeper conversation, he realizes that the female commander is his daughter. Danny is excited and tries to hug her, but she refuses to do so. He was puzzled, but he was very pleased with his daughter's achievements. Not only was she a colonel, but she also had a PhD from MIT. Then Danny joined his daughter on one of her missions, to capture a female white spike alive in order to research the poison that would kill them. The group flew by helicopter to the monster's lair. Inside the lair, several soldiers are trying to pull a female out, but suddenly the creature pops up on its own. It goes on a rampage. The situation is desperate. The daughter rushes down the rope to help. She's got a knack for it. She saw the problem right away. One of the creature's tentacles is not tied properly, which is why it's going on so wildly. So she shot the creature in the tentacle. Using herself as bait, she was knocked out of the way. Then she tells her men to pull the creature hard, but they couldn't pull. Her daughter was in danger. Outside the lair, a horde of monsters rushed in. Danny shoots one dead. Then he too enters the cave for support. He grabbed the monster's tentacles. The creature tried to shoot him dead, but Danny pulled at it, and the spike went into its own stomach. Then father and daughter teamed up and pushed the monster into the cage. The helicopter then pulled up and pulled the cage up into the sky. At that moment, several of the monsters flew up from the hillside and tried to grab the helicopter. It was crazy. Inside, more monsters were coming down the hillside. Danny and the two run away. A helicopter overhead is crawling with monsters and is falling apart, but they managed to climb into a Humvee. Danny was driving and his daughter was shooting. A good kill. Arriving at a safe beach, the daughter confessed why she was so indifferent to Danny. She said that Danny had come home from the future with a different temperament. Soon after, he divorced his mother and was killed in a car accident. Danny was so confused. He couldn't imagine being like that. Then the group arrived at an offshore base. The base was surrounded by two high walls, all to protect the time machine in the middle. The daughter took the female white elves to the lab. She started developing the toxin. She said that once it was developed, Danny would take it back to the past and mass produce it, to stop this disaster from happening. And as soon as she said that, the computer showed that it had been developed. The two of them immediately found the appropriate reagent, and the creature saw this. It became violent. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the base, countless monsters are crawling through the first fence. Despite the drone shooting overhead, it's no use. Danny and the two men rush out to get to the helicopter. The monsters have already broken through the second fence. The time machine is in jeopardy as it begins to concentrate on the military platform. Luckily, Danny is minutes away from traveling back in time. The daughter tells her men to protect the time machine at all costs. On the other hand, several monsters have stormed the lab and unleashed the females. This monster is very violent. In revenge, the two of them are surrounded by Danny's minions. They have to fight back to back and fire wildly. Danny issues instructions. The daughter shot a gas pipe and seriously wounded the female. The two of them break out of the ring. They were about to board the helicopter. The daughter is hit by a long spike from the female and falls to the ground. Danny shoots the creature and fights it off. At this point, with the monsters surrounded, the helicopter had to leave the tarmac first. The pilot tells the two to meet up on another tarmac. As the two men were making their way, a cruise ship accidentally crashes into a military platform, causing it to burst into flames. The helicopter was unfortunately affected and also caught fire and exploded before crashing into the sea. Her daughter collapses in a heap as her hopes of escape are dashed. She wept as she said goodbye to Danny and took out the vial of toxin. She told Danny to stop this from happening. As soon as the words left her mouth, the ghostly female climbed back up. The platform tilted and she grabbed her daughter's leg and slid down. Danny saw this and grabbed his daughter's hand. With 20 seconds to go before the crossing, her daughter let go of her hand to prevent Danny from having an accident, and there were countless monsters waiting for her at the berth. Danny couldn't bear the thought of jumping in with her, but the next moment he vanished into thin air and traveled back in time. Danny had only been in the future for 7 days, but it was like a lifetime ago. When he returned home to his young daughter, he couldn't find peace in his heart. At night he told his wife what had happened to him. He said he had the toxin but didn't know how to use it, because he didn't know when or where the monster would land on Earth. All he knew was that the first attack had taken place in Russia in 2048. The wife said the monsters attacked in 2048. That doesn't mean they landed in that year. It could have been 47 or 46. Danny immediately had the monster's claws tested. The results were astonishing. The creature had landed on Earth 1,000 years ago. The location was a glacier in Russia. Danny immediately told a government spokesman about it, but the spokesman didn't believe him. Danny had no choice but to form his own team, made as much toxin as he could. Then he had his dad fly them to the glacier. After a search, they found an electromagnetic anomaly. A bomb went off and sunk it, and there was an alien ship. Danny immediately cut open the hull and led the team into the ship. Dad and Blackie were left outside to guard the door. Soon they found the cockpit. There were 2 dead aliens in the cockpit. This led to the conclusion that the alien ship had crashed on Earth by accident. The search continued. They came to a room full of hibernation chambers for the monsters. They immediately injected several of them with toxins. Within moments, the creatures were screaming and dying. The toxin was really working, but the screams were so loud that the other monsters were woken up. By now it was too late to inject the toxin again. The monsters burst out of the silo. 3 of them escaped to the outside. Dad takes one out with his sniper rifle. Black takes out one with a chainsaw, but one of the biggest females escaped. The team tell Danny to chase the ones that got out. They chased the one inside the ship, but as they chased them, they realized that the whole ship was full of monsters, and they're all waking up. In desperation, the teen's Alan detonates a massive bomb. Danny escaped and rejoined his dad. The 2 of them set off in pursuit of the female. They soon spotted it, and the creature spotted them and came straight for Dad. In the nick of time, Danny drove his motorbike into the monster. Then father and son started shooting at it. The monster was in a very bad way, but as they did so, the creature disappeared. The father and son had to fight back to back because of the snowy weather and poor visibility. Suddenly the monster popped up and sent them both flying. The father and son continued to fire, but the firepower is clearly not there. Danny gets a nail in his thigh and the monster comes at him. Danny pulled out the nail and blinded the monster. Dad rushes over and blinds the monster in the other eye. The creature gets furious and shoots the spikes. Danny took out a poison needle and found an opportunity to stick it in the monster's arm. I thought that would be the end of the fight, but the creature broke its arm to survive. It snapped the arm off with its mouth and continued to attack Danny. In the nick of time, Dad slit his own palm. He was going to lure the creature off the cliff and kill it, but Danny wouldn't have it. He climbed straight onto the creature's back and slit its throat. He punched and kicked the creature before shoving the poison needle into its mouth. The monster crushed it before it knew it had been trapped, but it was too late. The whole head began to rot and melt. Danny kicked it off the cliff. The creature crashed onto a rock. It fell into a puddle of flesh. It's all over at last. This movie was released in 2021. It's called Tomorrow's War. It's a special effects movie. Some of my friends say it's full of logical flaws, but I advise people to watch these movies without thinking. Just watch and enjoy. Well, thank you for watching my commentary. I'll see you next time.